Stop the car. Stop the fucking car now. Dominic Russo's command cut through the plush interior of the armored Bentley, startling his driver and the two bodyguards flanking him in the back seat. No one moved. No one breathed. In 8 years as head of the Russo crime family, Dom had never raised his voice. He'd never needed to. His quietest words carried death in them. Boss, Vincent, his most trusted lieutenant, followed Dom's fixed stare through the tinted window. There, waiting at the crosswalk on Madison Avenue, stood a ghost. Sophia Moretti, the woman he'd buried in the darkest corner of his heart 5 years ago, was alive and breathing in the autumn sunlight, her chestnut hair longer now, her profile still achingly familiar. But it wasn't Sophia alone that had frozen Dom's blood. It was the children. Twin boys, no older than 4, clutched her hands on either side. If you're new to the channel, subscribe immediately. Wait, like this video so you don't miss stories like this. Comment new if this is your first time here. Let's continue. Even from this distance, even through the bulletproof glass, Dom recognized his own eyes staring back at him. The distinctive amber gold Russo eyes that had marked 3 generations of his family. Those can't be. Vincent's voice trailed off as comprehension dawned. Mine. Dom's voice was barely audible. They're mine. The traffic light changed. Sophia stepped into the crosswalk, the twins skipping alongside her. In that moment, Dominic Russo, the man who controlled half of New York's underworld, who had ordered executions without blinking, who had built an empire on blood and fear, felt something crack inside his chest. Follow them, he ordered, his voice returning with sudden urgency. Discreetly, the driver nodded, easing the Bentley forward. Dom's mind raced through calculations. 5 years since Sophia had disappeared from his life. 4-year-old twins. The timeline fit perfectly. She had been pregnant when she left, when he had pushed her away. Should I call ahead? Have Marco's team secure the area? Vincent asked, already reaching for his phone. No. Dom's hand shot out, stopping him. No security teams. No one else knows about this. Just us in this car. Vincent exchanged glances with the other bodyguard, Enzo. This was unprecedented. Dom never moved without a security detail, never entered unsecured territory. Not since the Bianchi family's assassination attempt 3 years ago. Sophia and the twins turned into a small cafe, one of those trendy places with outdoor seating and overpriced pastries. Dom watched as she settled the boys at a table, smoothing their matching navy coats, leaning down to wipe something from one child's cheek. Such ordinary gestures. Such an extraordinary revelation. Park across the street, Dom ordered. Wait here. Boss, with all due respect, you can't just walk in there alone, Vincent protested. Ricci's men were spotted in Midtown yesterday. We're still at war. Dom turned to Vincent, his face a mask of calm that belied the storm within. If Ricci wanted me dead, he'd have made his move after we took the docks last month. This isn't negotiable, Vincent. Wait. Here. Before his security team could object further, Dom stepped out of the Bentley. The crisp October air hit his face, carrying the scent of coming rain. How long had it been since he'd walked a city street without an armed escort? Since before his father's assassination, before he'd assumed control of the family, before Sophia. He paused at the cafe entrance, suddenly uncertain. Dominique Russo, un certain. The thought would have been laughable if he could breathe properly. Through the window, he could see Sophia helping one of the boys cut a chocolate croissant, her smile soft and maternal. The sight struck him like a physical blow. The bell above the door chimed as he entered. Several patrons glanced up, then quickly looked away, sensing something dangerous in the impeccably dressed man with the unreadable expression. All except Sophia, who froze mid-motion, knife suspended over the pastry, her eyes locking with his across the room. Recognition. Halt. Fear. Dom approached their table slowly, giving her time to process his presence, to decide whether to run. She didn't. Instead, she straightened, positioning herself almost imperceptibly between him and the twins. Sophia. Her name felt both foreign and intimately familiar on his tongue. Dominic. Her voice was steady, but he caught the slight tremor in her hands as she set down the knife. I thought you never left Manhattan. I make exceptions. His gaze shifted to the twins, who were watching him with curious, identical stares. His eyes, his father's eyes, his grandfather's eyes. For important matters. One of the boys tilted his head. Mama, who's that? Sophia's jaw tightened. This is an old friend of mine. Mr. Russo. You have a big car, the other twin observed, peering past Dom toward the Bentley. Is it bulletproof like in movies? Dom couldn't help the slight twitch of his lips. The kid was observant. Like him. Leo, Antonio, finish your snack, Sophia instructed, her tone gentle but firm. To Dom, she said, this isn't the place. Then where? Nowhere. There's nothing to discuss. The fear in her eyes had hardened into resolve. Dom leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper only she could hear. Those are my sons. No, she replied with equal quiet. They're mine. You made your choice 5 years ago. The memory sliced through him. Sophia in his penthouse, tears streaming down her face, begging him to walk away from his father's legacy, to choose love over vengeance after the old man's murder. And his cold response, there is no choice, Sophia. This is who I am, who I've always been. If you can't accept that, then leave. She had, without a word about the life growing inside her. You should have told me, he said, a dangerous edge creeping into his voice. So you could what? Draw them into your world. Sophia's eyes flashed. Look around you, Dom. This is normal. This is safe. They deserve that. Before he could respond, a small hand tugged at his tailored sleeve. Leo, or was it Antonio, looked up at him with innocent curiosity. Your watch is really shiny, the boy said. Are you rich? Despite everything, Dom felt something warm unfurl in his chest. Yes, he answered honestly. Leo, don't bother Mr. Russo, Sophia said quickly. It's no bother. Dom knelt to the child's eye level, an action so foreign to him that he felt his bodyguard stares from across the street. I like your coat. Navy blue. Good choice. Leo beamed. Mama says it's 'cause we have Italian blood. Gotta dress nice. Italian blood. Russo blood. Dom looked up at Sophia, who was watching the interaction with visible apprehension. We need to talk, he said again, rising to his full height. Properly. Not here. Before she could refuse again, the cafe door chimed. Dom's instincts flared, too late. He turned to see 2 men enter, their hands suspiciously positioned beneath their jackets. Not his men. Ricci's. Vincent had been right. They'd been following him. In the split second before violence erupted, Dom made a decision that would change everything. He shoved the table over, creating a barrier between his family and the gunman. Down, he roared, pulling Sophia and the twins to the floor as the first shots cracked through the cafe's peaceful atmosphere. Screams erupted as patrons dove for cover. Dom pressed Sophia and the boys beneath him, shielding them with his body, his hand already drawing the pistol holstered at the small of his back. 5 years of separation dissolved in an instant of primal protection. The window shattered as Vincent and Enzo opened fire from across the street. One of Ricci's men fell. The second retreated, firing wildly. Beneath him, Dom felt Sophia trembling, her arms wrapped tightly around the twins, who had begun to cry in terrified confusion. It's okay, he murmured, though nothing about this was okay. I've got you. All of you. In that moment, looking down at the woman he'd once loved and the sons he never knew he had, Dom realized a terrible truth. In trying to protect his empire, he had left the most vulnerable flank exposed. His heart. The gunfire ceased. Vincent's voice called from outside. Clear, boss. But more coming. Police too. We need to move. Dom met Sophia's tear-filled eyes. I can protect them. I can protect all of you. But you have to come with me now. This is exactly why I left, she whispered, her voice breaking. Your world will destroy them. My world just found them, Dom countered grimly. Whether you come with me or not, Ricci knows about them now. There's no going back. For a heartbeat, he thought she would refuse. Then one of the twins, Antonio, he thought, whimpered, Mama, I'm scared. Decision crystallized in Sophia's eyes. If anything happens to them, It won't. Dom helped her to her feet, keeping his body between them and the shattered window. They're Russos. My blood. My sons. As he ushered them toward the rear exit where Vincent had brought the car around, Dom felt a weight settle on his shoulders heavier than any burden of his criminal empire. These boys, these innocent children with his eyes and Sophia's gentle features, changed everything. For 5 years, he'd ruled without mercy, without hesitation. He'd buried his humanity alongside his memories of Sophia, becoming the ruthless leader the Russo family needed. Now, with the twins clinging to their mother's hands and police sirens wailing in the distance, Dom faced a truth he'd long denied. There had always been a choice. The safe house on Long Island. He instructed Vincent as they piled into the Bentley. Full security protocol. And get Dino to bring Dr. Amara. I want the boys check for shock. Sophia stared at him as the car accelerated away from the cafe, her expression a complex mixture of fear, anger, and something else, something that might have been the ghost of what they once shared. You didn't even ask their names, she said quietly. Dom looked at the twins, huddled against their mother, watching him with those Russo eyes that had seen too much violence in their short lives already. Tell me, he said, Leonardo and Antonio, after my grandfather and father, not after his family. She'd given them Italian names, honored her own bloodline, but kept nothing of the Russo legacy. He couldn't blame her. Leo and Antonio, Dom repeated, committing the names to memory. His sons, his heirs, his vulnerability. As the Bentley raced through Manhattan toward the relative safety of Long Island, Dom's phone vibrated. A message from his consigliere. Ricci moving on our territory in Brooklyn. Coordinated attack. Someone talked. We have a traitor. Dom closed his eyes briefly. Of course, the attack at the cafe wasn't random. Someone in his organization had betrayed him. Someone who knew his movements, his routine, his weaknesses. And now that same traitor knew about Sophia and the twins. The car phone rang. Vincent answered, his expression darkening as he listened. Understood. He hung up, turning to Dom. Ricci's men hit the waterfront warehouse. Marco and 6 of our men are down. They're sending a message. What message? Sophia asked, her voice small but steady. Dom met her gaze. That everything I care about is a target. As the Bentley crossed the Queensboro Bridge, leaving Manhattan's skyline behind, Dom made a silent vow. He would find a traitor. He would crush Ricci once and for all. And then, only then, would he face the hardest question of all. Could a man like him ever deserve the family he'd just discovered? The twins had fallen asleep against Sophia, exhaustion following their adrenaline crash. Looking at their innocent faces, Dom felt something crack open inside him, something he'd thought long dead. I'm going to fix this, he promised Sophia in a whisper. And then we'll talk about the future. There is no our future, Dom, she replied, though the conviction in her voice wavered. There's only their future. She nodded toward the sleeping twins. Before he could respond, Vincent turned from the front seat. Boss, we got a tail. Black SUV, 2 cars back. Dom's hand went to his weapon. How many? At least 4. Heavily armed. Sophia's arms tightened around the twins. This is never going to end, is it? She asked, her voice hollow with realization. Dom didn't answer. He didn't have to. The truth hung between them as clearly as the twins' parentage. As long as he remained the head of the Russo family, as long as he held power in New York's underworld, his blood would be a target, including the innocent blood sleeping in the back seat of his car. Down! Vincent shouted as the first bullet struck the Bentley's reinforced rear window, creating a spiderweb of cracks in the bulletproof glass. Sophia pulled the twins flat across her lap, shielding them with her body. Dom positioned himself between his family and the back window, gun drawn, his mind shifting into the cold, tactical clarity that had kept him alive through a decade of mob warfare. Evasive driving, now he ordered their driver. The Bentley lurched sideways, cutting across 2 lanes of traffic and taking a sudden exit off the bridge. Dom's phone buzzed, a secure message from his network of street informants. Ricci allied with the Colombians. Total war declared. All Russo properties under attack. Vincent, status report on all our holdings, Dom commanded, his voice eerily calm despite the chaos erupting around them. Vincent was already making calls, his expression darkening with each terse conversation. The club in Queens is burning. The restaurant's been hit. Marco's dead. Salvatore's surrounded at the processing plant. Sophia listened, her face ashen as the full scope of Dom's world came into violent focus. "This is what you chose," she whispered, too quietly for the twins to hear. "This is what you chose over us." The accusation struck deeper than any bullet. Dom held her gaze for a moment before returning to the immediate crisis. "Take the tunnel route to Safe House 2, he instructed the driver. "The Long Island compound is too obvious." He turned to Vincent. "Call ahead. I want Giovanni's security team in place before we arrive." Full lockdown protocol. The black SUV was still in pursuit, joined now by a second vehicle. The driver executed a series of sharp turns through industrial streets of Queens, using every evasive tactic in his repertoire. "Who's Giovanni?" Sophia asked, stroking the twins' hair as they whimpered in confusion and fear. "My security chief," Dom replied. "Former Special Forces. He runs our most secure facilities." "By facilities, you mean places where you hide people you're going to kill," Sophia said bitterly. Dom's jaw tightened. "Among other things." The twins stirred, Leo looking up with frightened eyes. "Mama, are the bad men still chasing us?" Before Sophia could answer, Antonio added, "Like in my nightmares?" Dom's attention snapped to the second boy. "What nightmares?" Antonio ducked his head, suddenly shy under his father's intense focus. Sophia answered for him. "He has dreams about men coming to take him away. For months now." Her voice contained an accusation. "Children sense things, Dom. They've always known they weren't entirely safe." The revelation struck Dom like a physical blow. Had his sons somehow intuited the danger of their bloodline, even before today? Had his world been casting shadows over them despite Sophia's best efforts? The Bentley screeched around another corner, momentarily losing their pursuers. The driver took advantage of the lead, turning down an unmarked access road that led to what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse. As they approached, a hidden garage door rolled up, allowing the vehicle to slip inside before sealing shut behind them. Safe House 2 was disguised as a shipping facility, but had been converted into a fortress. Concrete walls reinforced with steel, surveillance systems covering every approach, and an underground bunker designed to withstand virtually any assault. As they exited the car, Giovanni himself approached, a grim-faced man in his 50s with military-precise movements and eyes that registered everything. "Perimeter secure, boss," he reported, before his gaze fell on Sophia and the twins. If he was surprised to see children in Dom's secret bunker, his expression revealed nothing. Dom made swift introductions. "Sophia, Leo, Antonio, this is Giovanni. He'll keep you safe while I handle the situation." "What situation?" Leo asked, his small face serious as he studied the armed men positioning themselves throughout the facility. "Are you a policeman?" The innocent question hung in the air. Dom knelt to his son's level, searching for words that wouldn't terrify or traumatize the boy. "No, I'm not a policeman. I'm a businessman, but some bad people are angry with me, so we need to stay here until it's safe." "Because of us?" Antonio's perceptive question surprised everyone. Dom shook his head firmly. "No, this started long before today, before you were born." Sophia's expression softened slightly at his effort to remove any guilt from the children's shoulders. She allowed Giovanni to guide them deeper into the facility to a surprisingly comfortable living area designed for extended stays. As soon as the twins were settled with snacks and a movie on a large screen, Dom pulled Sophia and Vincent into an adjacent office. "Talk to me," he demanded of his lieutenant. "How bad?" Vincent didn't sugarcoat it. "It's a coordinated assault across all fronts. Ricci must have been planning this for months. He's taken the docks, hit our distribution centers, and targeted our key people. And the traitor? We're narrowing it down. Only 8 people knew your schedule today, where you be traveling. Dom nodded grimly. Check them all. Use the special interrogation team if necessary. Sophia flinched at the implication. This is exactly why I left, why I kept the boys away from you. Your world is nothing but violence and revenge. My world, Dom countered, pays for their private school tuition. Her eyes widened. How did you? I never stopped watching over you, Sophia. Monthly deposits to your account from a shell corporation. Security details you never noticed. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Like this video if you love intense stories. Comment yes if you're ready for what comes next. Let's continue. Did you think it was luck that no one bothered the single mother with twin boys in that expensive neighborhood? Color drained from Sophia's face. You've been stalking us for years. Protecting you, Dom corrected. Without interfering. Without imposing my presence. I respected your choice. But you didn't know about the twins, she challenged. No. His voice hardened. You made sure of that. Vincent cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the personal tension. Boss, we should discuss the counteroffensive. Ricci's expecting us to retreat, regroup. If we strike back immediately, no. Dom's response surprised both Vincent and Sophia. We stay defensive. Protect what matters most. His gaze lingered on the doorway, through which his sons had disappeared. Vincent's expression registered shock. In 8 years, Dominic Russo had never chosen defense over offense. Never passed on an opportunity to crush an enemy. Dom, Vincent started, with respect, if we don't hit back hard, I said no. Dom's voice was quiet but final. Secure our people, minimize casualties. But no counterattacks until I give the word. After Vincent reluctantly departed to relay the orders, Sophia studied Dom with newfound uncertainty. That's not the Dominic Russo, I remember. The one who chose his father's vengeance over our future together. Dom moved to a window overlooking the warehouse floor, where his men were establishing defensive positions. Maybe seeing my sons for the first time has adjusted my priorities. They're not bargaining chips, Dom. Not assets in your war. He turned to her, something raw and honest breaking through his controlled exterior. Do you think I don't know that? Do you think I wanted them pulled into this? 4 or 5 years. I made sure your world and mine never collided. I stayed away. I let you build a life without me. A lie by omission is still a lie. Sophia. You were pregnant when you left. Her eyes flashed. And what would you have done if I told you? Marry me? Retired from the family business? Become a suburban dad who just happens to order executions between soccer practices? The words stung because they contained truth. 5 years ago, Dom would have seen the pregnancy as a complication, perhaps even a trap. He'd been consumed with avenging his father's murder, with consolidating power. A family, the very thing his father had warned made a man vulnerable, would have been an unacceptable weakness. I don't know what I would have done, he admitted, but they deserve to know their father. And I deserve to know my sons. Sophia's anger deflated slightly. Maybe, but can you honestly tell me they would have been safer growing up as Russos? With enemies watching their every move, waiting for a chance to use them against you. Before Dom could answer, the door opened. Giovanni entered, his expression grim. Boss, you need to see this. He handed Dom a tablet. On screen was a video message. Salvatore, one of Dom's oldest captains, kneeling before the camera, bloodied and beaten. Behind him stood Carlo Ricci, the rival boss who'd been encroaching on Russo territory for years. Russo, Ricci addressed the camera. By now you understand the situation. Your empire is falling. Your men are dying. But it doesn't have to end with everyone you care about in body bags. Ricci moved closer to the camera. I know about the woman and the kids. My source has been very informative. So here's my offer. Surrender your territories, step down as head of the Russo family, and they live. You can even join them in witness protection. His smile was reptilian. 48 hours, Dom. Then I start sending pieces of your family back to you, starting with these beautiful twin boys I've heard so much about. The video ended. Sophia stood frozen, her face a mask of terror. He's bluffing, Dom said quickly. He doesn't have them. They're here safe. But he knows, Sophia whispered. He knows about them. Dom turned to Giovanni. Triple the security. No one gets within a mile of this place without my approval. and find that fucking traitor. As Giovanni left to implement the new orders, Sophia approached Dom. Her earlier anger transformed into cold determination. I want my sons out of the country. Tonight. New identities. Somewhere Ricci will never find them. Running won't solve this, Dom argued. Ricci won't stop hunting what's mine. Not now. They're not yours, Sophia hissed. You don't get to claim them after 5 years of absence. I was absent because you chose that for all of us. For the first time, Dom's composure cracked. You think I wouldn't have protected my own children if I'd known they existed? You think I wouldn't have moved heaven and earth to keep them safe? Safe? Sophia laughed bitterly. Look around you, Dom. Is this your definition of safety? Armed guards, bulletproof cars, hiding in bunkers? This isn't a life for children. Their argument was interrupted by a small voice from the doorway. Why are you fighting about us? Both turned to find Leo standing there, his young face solemn and frightened. Antonio peered from behind his brother, thumb in his mouth. A nervous habit Sophia had mentioned he'd outgrown months ago, now returning in the stress of their situation. Dom and Sophia fell silent, the weight of their son's presence extinguishing the fire of their argument. We're not fighting about you, Sophia said gently, moving to kneel before the twins. We're just worried and trying to figure out what to do next. Leo looked past his mother to Dom. Are you really our dad? The directness of the question, so characteristic of children, momentarily stole Dom's voice. He nodded, unable to find words adequate for this moment he'd never expected to face. Mama said our dad had to go away because his job was dangerous, Antonio contributed, removing his thumb to speak. Dom's gaze shot to Sophia, who had the grace to look slightly ashamed. At least she hadn't told them he was dead, or worse, that he'd abandoned them willingly. My job is dangerous, Dom confirmed, approaching slowly and kneeling to their level. But if I had known about you, I would have found a way to be in your lives. To protect you. Like now, Leo asked. Like now, Dom agreed. Antonio studied him with those Russo eyes that missed nothing. The bad men want to hurt us to hurt you. It wasn't a question. Dom marveled at his son's perception while grieving the loss of innocence happening before his eyes. I won't let them, he promised. No one will touch a hair on your heads. The twins exchanged one of those silent communications that only identical siblings share. Then, to everyone's surprise, Leo stepped forward and placed his small hand on Dom's cheek. You look sad, the boy observed. Like Mama does sometimes when she thinks we're sleeping. The simple touch, the unexpected compassion from a child who had every reason to fear him, broke something in Dom's carefully constructed armor. He covered his son's hand with his own, feeling calluses built from years of violence against the perfect softness of Leo's palm. I am sad, he admitted. Sad about missing so much. Your first words, your first steps. We're 4, Antonio informed him solemnly, as if this explained everything Dom needed to know. We like dinosaurs in space, and Mama makes us eat broccoli even though it's gross. A smile tugged at Dom's lips. Broccoli is good for growing boys. That's what Mama says, Leo sighed dramatically. Sophia watched the interaction with complex emotions playing across her face. Fear, tenderness, and something like hope warring for dominance. The moment was shattered by an explosion that rocked the entire facility. Alarms blared as Dom instinctively gathered the twins against him, shielding them as plaster dust rained from the ceiling. Vincent burst through the door. They found us. Northeast perimeter breached. Ow, Dom demanded, rising with the twins secured in each arm. Unknown, but we're compromised. We need to move you all now. Dummet Sophie aus Telefon geish. The panic room. It's reinforced to withstand a direct hit. As he rushed his newly discovered family toward the facility's innermost sanctuary, Dom's mind raced through possibilities. Safe House 2 was known to only his most trusted circle. For Ricci to find it so quickly, the betrayal had to come from someone very close. The twins clung to him as gunfire erupted in distant corridors. Sophia ran alongside, her earlier anger at Dom temporarily forgotten in the face of immediate danger to her children. They reached the panic room, a steel-reinforced chamber with its own air supply, communications, and enough provisions for days. Dom transferred the twins to Sophia's arms. "Get inside," he ordered. "Giovanni will seal you in." "You're not coming?" Sophia's voice cracked with fear. "I need to end this," Dom replied. "Now, please," she whispered. "They need their father." The word, father, hit Dom with unexpected force. Father. After years of being called boss, capo, Don Russo, the simple title of father suddenly meant more than all his accumulated power and wealth. Leo and Antonio watched him with wide, frightened eyes, still somehow trusting this man they'd just met to make the monsters go away. Dom made his decision. "Giovanni, you have command. Full defensive protocol. No one gets past this point." Giovanni nodded grimly. "With my life, boss." Dom stepped into the panic room with his family, allowing the heavy door to seal behind them. Inside, monitors displayed security feeds from throughout the facility. On one screen, Dom watched his men engage with Ricci's invading force. On another, he saw Vincent directing the defense, shouting orders as he fired methodically at advancing enemies. Turning away from the violence, Dom faced Sophia and the twins, who had huddled together on a small couch. "We're safe here," he assured them. "This room can withstand anything short of a nuclear blast." "How long do we stay?" Sophia asked, her arms tight around the boys. "Until I identify the traitor and eliminate the threat," Dom replied. Then, seeing her expression, he softened his tone. "Until I can guarantee your safety outside these walls." Hours passed. The twins eventually fell asleep, emotional exhaustion claiming them despite the distant sounds of conflict. Dom and Sophia sat in charged silence, watching over their sons, the years of separation stretching between them like a chasm. "Why didn't you tell me?" Dom finally asked, his voice low to avoid waking the boys. "The real reason." Sophia was quiet, so long Dom thought she might not answer. Then, "Because I knew what you would become." "What does that mean?" "After your father was killed, I saw the change in you. The coldness. The calculation. Each day, more of the man I loved disappeared, replaced by this." She gestured at him. The tailored suit, the gun holstered at his side, the hardness in his eyes. "I couldn't bear to watch you become him. My father, a man who puts power above everything, even family." Sophia's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Your father had a favorite saying, remember? Family is a liability in our world. I heard him tell you that so many times." The memory hit Dom with unexpected clarity. His father, Salvatore Russo, drilling those words into him since childhood. Family, real family, not the crime family, was a weakness enemies could exploit. Attachments made a man vulnerable. Love was a luxury men like them couldn't afford. "I didn't want our children raised believing that," Sophia continued. "I didn't want them learning that love is weakness, that violence is strength, that fear is respect." Dom had no response. She was right. Following his father's murder, he had embraced every lesson the old man had taught him, becoming the cold, ruthless leader the Russo organization needed. He had buried his humanity alongside his love for Sophia, convincing himself the sacrifice was necessary. The security monitor beeped, drawing their attention. Vincent's face appeared on screen. "Boss, the attack has been repelled. Ricci's forces retreated, but they'll be back with reinforcements." "Casualties?" Dom asked. 7 of ours. Double that for them." "But boss," Vincent hesitated. "We've identified the traitor. It's Luca." Dom felt the blood drain from his face. "Luca? You're sure?" "Intercepted communications confirm it. He's been feeding Ricci information for months." Luca Falcone, Dom's cousin, his childhood friend, the man who had stood beside him at his father's funeral, who had helped him consolidate power in those chaotic early days. "Find him," Dom ordered, his voice deadly quiet. "Bring him to me alive." The betrayal cut deeper than Dom would have expected. After everything they'd survived together, Luca had sold him out, had endangered not just his business, but his sons. Sons Luca didn't even know existed. Unless a terrible suspicion formed in Dom's mind. "Vincent, Check the street cameras from this morning. The ones that would have captured Sophia crossing with the twins. I need to know who else was watching." As Vincent hurried to comply, Sophia studied Dom's face. "You think Luca knew about us?" "How?" "I don't know yet. But the timing is too perfect." Dom paced the confined space of the panic room. "Ricci launches his war the exact same day I discover my sons? Someone wanted me distracted, divided. One of the monitors flickered, then displayed footage from earlier that day. The street corner where Dom had first spotted Sophia and the twins. As the video played, Dom scanned the periphery, looking for a black sedan parked half a block away. Tinted windows, but as Sophia and the twins crossed, the driver's window lowered slightly. Just enough to glimpse a face Dom knew as well as his own. "Luca." "He knew," Dom breathed. "He's been watching you too." The implications cascaded through Dom's mind. If Luca had known about the twins, had been monitoring Sophia all this time, then the betrayal went deeper than business. This was personal, as if summoned by Dom's realization. Another monitor activated. Luca's face filled the screen, his familiar features twisted in a mockery of their former friendship. "Hello, cousin," Luca greeted. "I see you've met your sons. Handsome boys. They have your eyes." Dom moved to shield the screen from the sleeping twins. "What do you want, Luca?" "What's owed to me?" Luca's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Half the Russo Empire should have been mine. Your father promised it to my father. Brothers in blood, brothers in business. But when the old man died, you took everything. That's what this is about. Money? Territory?" Dom's contempt was palpable. "It's about respect," Lucas snarled. "About honoring agreements. About family. Family doesn't betray family. Tell that to your father. Tell that to yourself when you cut my branch of the family out of the leadership structure." Dom's mind raced back to those chaotic days after his father's murder. He'd been focused on survival, on maintaining control. Had he overlooked legitimate grievances from his uncle's family? Had he created this enemy through his own actions? "And Sophia?" Dom asked. "The twins? How long have you known?" Luca's smile turned cruel. "Since the beginning. I was the one who delivered your father's ultimatum to her at the hospital while you were busy planning vengeance against the Bianchis." Sophia gasped. Dom turned to her, confusion evident. "What ultimatum?" "You don't know." Luca laughed. "Oh, this is rich. Your precious father, the great Salvatore Russo, visited Sophia after she told you she was pregnant. Offered her a choice: disappear with the baby and live, or stay and face consequences. He was protecting you from the very weakness he'd warned you about." The revelation struck Dom like a physical blow. "My father threatened you?" he asked Sophia. Her eyes confirmed it before her words could. "He said loving you would get me killed, that a child would make you vulnerable to your enemies, that I needed to disappear for all our sakes." "And you believed him?" "Without coming to me first. He showed me photos, Dom, your meetings with the Bianchi's rivals, the weapons you were stockpiling. He said you'd chosen your path, that there was no place in it for a family." Sophia's voice broke. "I was 23, pregnant, and terrified. So yes, I believed him." Dom felt the foundations of his world shifting. His father, the man he'd avenged, whose legacy he'd preserved at enormous cost, had manipulated them all, had ensured his son would follow in his footsteps, unburdened by love or family. And Dom had played his part perfectly, becoming exactly what Salvatore Russo had wanted. Luca's voice drew him back to the present. "Touching family reunion. But it changes nothing. Ricci and I have an arrangement. He gets half your territory. I get the other half. And you, cousin, you get to live in exile, knowing you lost everything." "Not everything," Dom replied, looking at his sleeping sons. "Not what matters most." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Luca's face. He'd expected rage, threats, the old Dominic Russo who would burn the world down before surrendering an inch of territory. "You have 24 hours to surrender," Luca declared. "Or I start sending those boys pieces of their mother." The screen went black. Dom stood motionless, processing everything he'd learned. His father's betrayal, Luca's long-simmering resentment, the reason Sophia had disappeared from his life. And through it all, One truth emerged with crystal clarity. His sons were his priority now. Not vengeance, not territory, not the Russo legacy. Sophia watched him, sensing the transformation occurring within the man she'd once loved. "What are you thinking?" she finally asked. Dom turned to her, his expression calm but determined. "That it's time to end this. All of it. Ow! By giving Luca exactly what he wants." Dom's gaze fell on their sleeping sons, and then taking back what's truly mine. As dawn broke over New York, bathing the panic room's monitors in pale light, Dom Russo, heir to a criminal empire, feared Mafia Boss, newly discovered father, made the decision that would alter the course of his life forever. The choice he should have made 5 years ago. The basement of St. Michael's Church had witnessed countless Russo family meetings over 3 generations. Its stone walls had absorbed decades of secrets, alliances formed, enemies marked for death, territories divided. Now, those same walls observed something unprecedented. Dominic Russo sitting alone at the ancient oak table, waiting for the men who had tried to destroy him. No bodyguards, no weapons visible. Just Dom in an immaculate charcoal suit, hands folded before him, as calm as if awaiting a business lunch rather than confronting the architects of his potential downfall. The heavy door creaked open. Carlo Ricci entered first, a corpulent man in his 60s whose deceptively jovial appearance masked a legendary cruelty. Behind him came Luca, Dom's cousin, his face a mask of wary triumph. "No ambus, casen?" Luca asked, scanning the empty room. "I'm almost disappointed." "You asked for a meeting," Dom replied evenly. "I honored the request." Ricci settled his bulk into a chair across from Dom, wheezing slightly with the effort. "Where's your consigliere? Your captains? This isn't a proper sit-down. This isn't a negotiation between equals," Dom corrected. "This is me telling you how things will proceed from here." "Luca Bartalaf, you've lost half your territory and a third of your men. Your own cousin has turned against you. You're in no position to dictate terms." Dom's expression remained unchanged. "Are you finished?" Something in his calm unnerved both men. This wasn't the reaction they'd anticipated. The Dominic Russo they knew would have fought to the death before conceding an inch of his father's empire. "I'm prepared to offer terms," Dom continued into the uncertain silence. "I will step down as head of the Russo family. I will surrender my direct holdings, the docks, the construction companies, the waste management contracts." Ricci and Luca exchanged glances, suspicion, warring with greed. "What's the catch?" Ricci demanded. "In exchange, you will acknowledge a permanent peace between our organizations. No retribution against any Russo family member or associate. No pursuit of Sophia Moretti or her children. They are to be left alone forever, with no surveillance, no contact, no threats." Luca studied his cousin, disbelief etched on his features. "You give up everything for them?" "Not everything," Dom corrected. "I retain my legitimate businesses, the real estate holdings, the investment firm, the tech startups. I take my personal fortune, which, as you know, is considerable. I disappear for New York and the life. Permanently." Ricci's small eyes narrowed. "Why would you offer this? What's your angle?" "My angle," Dom replied with the ghost of a smile, "is that I've seen the future, and it's not in this room. It's not in territory disputes or revenge killings or measuring power by how many men call you boss. My future has my eyes and their mother's smile." Luca's expression hardened. "Salvatore would be ashamed. He built this family on blood and iron, and you'd throw it away for what? Playdates and PDA meetings?" "My father," Dom said quietly, "denied me the choice he never had the courage to make himself. I won't repeat his mistake." Ricci leaned forward, jowls quivering with barely suppressed excitement. "And if we accept these terms, how do we know you won't change your mind in a year, come back with an army?" Dom reached into his jacket, causing both men to tense, but he withdrew only a thick envelope. Inside are signed documents transferring ownership of all contested holdings. Also, a confession to certain federal crimes that would guarantee me a life sentence if I ever return to our business. Consider it my insurance policy on your behalf." Luca took the envelope, skepticism evident. "Just like that? The great Dominic Russo surrenders? Not surrendering, Dom corrected, choosing a different path. Ricci's meaty hand slapped the table. I accept these terms. Lucrative and amusing. The mighty Dom Russo, reduced to changing diapers while I expand into his territory. The twins are 4, Dom noted dryly. Well past diapers. Luca remained silent, studying his cousin with an unreadable expression. Finally, he nodded. I accept as well. But know this, if you're playing some long game, if this is some elaborate trap, I will find those boys and finish what your father started. Dom's eyes flashed, the only crack in his composed exterior. Then we understand each other perfectly. Because if any harm comes to them or their mother, there is no hold deep enough, no protection sufficient to save you from what I would do in response. The threat hung in the air, more potent for its quiet delivery. Ricci pushed his bulk up from the chair. We're done here. A pleasure doing business, Russo. After they departed, Dom remained seated, alone in the basement that had witnessed so many Russo family decisions. He ran his fingertips across the scarred oak tabletop, feeling the history beneath them. His grandfather had sat here. His father. And now, for the last time, he wasn't naive. He knew Ricci and Luca would likely violate the agreement eventually. Power always hunger for more. But by then, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Like this video if you love intense stories. Comment yes if you're ready for what comes next. Let's continue. Dom would have implemented the second phase of his plan, the part he hadn't shared with his enemies. Vincent entered the room, breaking Dom's reverie. It's Don Boss, he reported. The FBI received the evidence package an hour ago. Ricci and Luca should be in custody by nightfall. Dom nodded. And our people safely relocated. The business transitions are underway, as you ordered. What Dom had offered Ricci and Luca was indeed true. He was surrendering his criminal operations. What he hadn't mentioned was the comprehensive evidence of their crimes he'd compiled over years, which was now in federal hands. His own legitimate businesses had been insulated through a complex legal structure designed for exactly this contingency. By tomorrow, the New York criminal landscape would be in chaos, with its 2 most powerful figures facing lifetime imprisonment. Into that void would step carefully chosen successors who understood the new reality. The violence, the territory wars, the old vendetta system. It was bad for business in the modern era. Profitable cooperation would replace bloody competition. The Russo name would transition from feared to merely respected. A family known for business acumen rather than brutal enforcement. The safe house is ready, Vincent added. Sophia and the twins are already there. Dom rose from the table. Thank you, Vincent, for everything. Will I see you again, boss? Dom clasped his lieutenant's shoulder. Not as your boss, but perhaps someday as your friend. The goodbye was brief. Dom had never been one for sentimentality. But as he climbed the church steps into the bright spring sunshine, he felt the weight of decades lifting from his shoulders. For the first time since his father's murder, he was making choices unburdened by Salvatore Russo's shadow. The safe house was a sprawling modern home on a secluded beach in the Hamptons, waves crashing rhythmically against the shore beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. Dom found Sophia watching the twins build an elaborate sand castle on the private beach, a small security team maintaining a discreet perimeter. She sensed his presence before he spoke. It's done. Dom nodded. Ricci and Luca took the deal. They won't be a problem much longer. Sophia studied his face, searching for signs of the old Dom, the calculation, the coldness, the violence simmering beneath the surface. Instead, she found something she hadn't seen in years, peace. What happens now? She asked. That depends on you. Dom's gaze shifted to the twins, who had spotted him and were waving enthusiastically from beach. He returned their waves, marveling at how quickly children could adapt, how readily they had accepted his presence in their lives despite the traumatic circumstances of their introduction. I've secured new identities for all of us, he continued. A home in California. Trust funds for the boys. Security that will be invisible but effective. All of us. Sophia echoed, the question in her voice unmistakable. Dom turned to face her fully. I'm not asking to step back into your life as if the past 5 years never happened. I'm not expecting you to love me again or even forgive me, but I am asking for the chance to be a father to my sons. And the business? Over. Completely. Dom gestured toward the ocean. As of 3 hours ago, I'm officially a retired investment banker with no criminal record, looking to spend time with my family after years of workaholism. Skepticism flickered across Sophia's features. Just like that, the great Dominic Rousseau walks away from an empire. For the right reason? Yes. And what is the right reason? Instead of answering immediately, Dom nodded toward the beach. Let's join them. They walked together onto the warm sand, where Leo and Antonio greeted them with excited shouts. Dom knelt beside their half-completed castle, admiring the architectural ambition, if not the structural integrity. It's going to have a moat, Leo explained earnestly. And drawbridge. But the waves keep messing it up. The ocean is a tough neighbor, Dom agreed. May I help? Antonio handed him a small plastic shovel with solemn authority. You can dig the moat deeper. That's the hard part. Dom accepted the tool with equal solemnity. I'm honored. For the next hour, the four of them worked on the sandcastle together. Dom followed the twins' increasingly elaborate instructions, marveling at their creativity, their energy, their absolute confidence that this ephemeral structure deserved their full attention despite its inevitable destruction by the tide. Sophia watched him, her expression softening as Dom patiently rebuilt a collapsed tower, encouraging Antonio when the boy grew frustrated. You still haven't answered my question, she said quietly while the twins chased seagulls at the water's edge. What's the right reason for walking away from everything you built? Dom looked up at her, sand covering his once immaculate suit, sunlight catching the premature silver at his temples. Them, he said simply, and the man I want to be for them. The man I should have tried to be for you. A wave crashed against the shore, sending the twins into peals of laughter as they dodged the foamy water. Their joy, so pure and uncomplicated, struck Dom with physical force. This was what his father had feared. This was the weakness Salvatore had warned him against. This overwhelming love that made everything else, power, territory, respect, seem hollow in comparison. I can't promise to get it right, Dom continued. I don't know how to be a father. I certainly don't remember how to be the man you once loved. But I want to learn. Sophia sat beside him on the sand, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. I am scared, Dom. Not of your enemies or your past. I'm scared of believing in you again, of letting the boys believe in you, only to watch you get pulled back into that world. It's a reasonable fear. Dom's honesty was unflinching. I've made arrangements that make my return nearly impossible, but the pull will always be there. The power, the control, the simplicity of solving problems with force rather than patience. He turned to meet her gaze directly. But I've seen what that life cost me. What would continue to cost? And I'm done paying that price. A shout from the waterline drew their attention. The twins had found a small tidal pool with trapped fish, their excitement palpable as they called for their parents to come see. Parents! The word echoed in Dom's mind as he and Sophia rose to join their sons. I'm not asking for promises, he said as they walked toward the water. Just a chance. Sophia was quiet for several steps. Then, so softly he almost missed it beneath the crash of waves. I never stopped loving you, Dom. I just couldn't love what you became. The admission hung between them, fragile and powerful. I'm not that man anymore, he replied, and I never will be again. As they reached the twins, who immediately dragged them down to examine their discovery, Dom felt something he'd thought long buried beneath years of violence and calculation. Hope. 6 months later, the house in Malibu had become home. Perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, it was as far from Dom's Manhattan penthouse as possible, in distance and in spirit. Open, light-filled spaces replaced the fortress-like security of his former residences. Glass walls invited the horizon inside. The constant rhythm of waves replaced the urban cacophony he'd known his entire life. Dom sat on the deck, reviewing financial reports from his legitimate holdings, which continued to thrive under careful management. The sound of children's laughter drifted up from the private beach below, where Sophia was helping the twins build a sandcastle, a ritual that had become their family tradition. His phone buzzed with a message from Vincent. Ricci's sentenced today. Life without parole. Luca cooperating with feds for reduced sentence. It's finished. Dom read the message twice, then deleted it. That chapter was closed. He set aside his work and made his way down the winding stairs to the beach. The twins spotted him immediately. Dad, come see. We made it bigger than last time. Leo called, waving enthusiastically. Dad. The simple title still hit him with unexpected force each time he heard it. 5 months of being called Dad hadn't diminished its power. Impressive engineering, Dom commented, crouching to examine their creation. The reinforced walls were a good idea. Mom taught us, Antonio explained. She said sand needs to be packed tight to stand up to the waves. Dom's gaze met Sophia's over the children's heads. She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes in a way he'd been seeing more frequently these days. They weren't back to where they had been before his father's death, before he'd chosen power over love. Perhaps they never would be, but something new was growing between them, something tempered by pain and separation, yet stronger for having survived it. They shared a home, but separate bedrooms. Shared parenting, but with tentative hearts. Each day brought them closer. Each genuine laugh from the twins, another bridge between past and future. Race you to the rocks, Leo challenged, and both boys took off down the beach, leaving their parents alone beside the elaborate sandcastle. Vincent messaged, Dom said, Ricci got life. Luca is cooperating. Sophia nodded, absorbing the information. Do you miss it? She asked, the question she'd never directly posed before. The power, the respect, being feared. Dom considered the question with the honesty their rebuilding relationship demanded. Sometimes, he admitted, in the same way an addict probably misses their drug of choice. But then I hear them laugh. He nodded toward the twins, now clambering over tidal rocks. And I remember what I would have missed if I'd stayed in that life. Sophia's hand found his, sand-covered fingers intertwining. You're a good father, Dom. Better than I expected. I had a perfect example of what not to do, he replied. My father believed family was weakness. I'm trying to teach our sons that family is strength, the right kind of strength. The sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting golden light across the water. Dom checked his watch. We should head up. They have school tomorrow, and it's bath night. Sophia's laugh held genuine amusement. Listen to you, the great Dominic Russo, concerned about bath time and bedtime stories. I take my responsibilities seriously, he replied with mock gravity. Tonight's story involves pirates and hidden treasure. I've been preparing all day. As they called the twins back from their exploration, Dom reflected on the transformation of his life. 6 months ago, he'd been negotiating territory with rival crime families, ordering retribution against enemies, moving millions through complex money laundering operations. Now, his most challenging negotiations involved bedtime extensions and vegetable consumption. His security concerns centered around bicycle safety and stranger awareness. His financial planning focused on college funds and retirement investments. And he had never felt more fulfilled. That night, after the twins were finally asleep, Dom found Sophia on the deck, wrapped in a light blanket against the coastal breeze. She looked up as he joined her, moonlight silvering her profile. I have something for you, he said, sitting beside her on the wide lounger. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box, not new, but preserved with care. Sophia's breath caught as she recognized it. You kept it? All these years. Dom opened the box, revealing a delicate diamond ring. The engagement ring he'd given her a lifetime ago, before his father's murder had derailed their future. I couldn't bring myself to sell it, he admitted. Even in my coldest, some part of me couldn't let go completely. Sophia stared at the ring, memories flooding her expression. I'm not proposing, Dom clarified. Not yet. We're not ready, and you deserve better than a recycled ring in a half-formed question. He closed the box, pressing it into her palm. But I want you to have this back, as a promise that when the time is right, If that time comes, I'll do it properly. With a new ring. A new beginning. Sophia's fingers closed around the box. And if that time never comes, then this is still yours, he said simply. A piece of our history you should have back. A reminder that beneath everything that happened, beneath all my mistakes and failures, there was love. Real love. Tears glistened in Sophia's eyes, catching the moonlight. There still is, she whispered. There always was. She leaned forward, closing the distance between them, and kissed him, their first since the reunion. It was tentative, questioning, but held the echo of the passion they'd once shared and the promise of what might grow again. When they separated, Dom rested his forehead against hers. We take it slow, he murmured. Day by day. The boys come first. Day by day, she agreed. Inside the house, a small voice called out, Mom? Dad? They both smiled at the interruption. Parenting never respected romantic moments. Antonio's having that nightmare again, Sophia sighed, rising. Dom touched her arm. Let me. You've handled the last 3. As he made his way to his son's bedroom, Dom reflected on how thoroughly his priorities had shifted. Once, he would have sent underlings to handle any disturbance while he continued whatever pleased him. Now, he found genuine fulfillment in being the one his son called for in the darkness. Antonio was sitting up in bed, his Batman nightlight casting heroic shadows across the walls. The bad men were chasing us again, he said as Dom sat on the edge of the bed. The same dream? Dom asked gently. Antonio nodded, clutching his stuffed dinosaur tighter. They had guns like at the cafe. Dom gathered his son against his chest, feeling the small, rapid heartbeat gradually slow as he stroked the boy's hair. Those men are gone now, he assured him. They can't hurt you or Leo or Mom. Ever. Promise. I promise. Dom's voice held absolute certainty. You know how I used to have a different job? Before I came to live with you and Leo and Mom. Antonio nodded against his chest. Mom said you were a businessman who worked too hard. Dom smiled slightly at Sophia's diplomatic description. That's true. But part of my job was making sure people kept their promises. And if they didn't, there were consequences. He tilted his son's face up to meet his gaze. Which means everyone knows that breaking a promise to Dominic Russo is a very, very bad idea. So when I promise you're safe, it's the strongest promise in the world. Antonio considered this with 4-year-old solemnity. Okay, he decided finally. Will you stay until I fall asleep? Of course. As Dom sat in the darkened room, his son's breathing eventually deepening into sleep, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The chance sighting of Sophia crossing a Manhattan street with his unknown sons. The violent confrontation that had exposed their existence to his enemies. The betrayal by his own blood that had forced him to choose between his empire and his children. In the end, it hadn't been a difficult choice at all. Outside Antonio's window, the Pacific stretched endlessly under moonlight. So different from the Hudson River views of his former life. So much more vast. So much more peaceful. Dom Russo, once the most feared mafia boss on the East Coast, now simply dad to twin boys who knew nothing of his former power, closed his eyes and offered silent gratitude to whatever fate had frozen him in his tracks that day, when he glimpsed his ex crossing the street with the children he never knew he needed. His father had been wrong. Family wasn't weakness. It was redemption. Like this video to support powerful stories like this. And comment below what lesson you learned from this story.